Hello, welcome back. Today we are going to go back and do something a little bit fun, a little bit geeky, as you can tell with the way I am outfitted. We are going to talk about sword fighting. Well, actually, we are going to be talking a little bit about the basic of bucklers. Right? Recently, for my birthday, one of my friends gave me some Amazon money, aka the Amazon gift card. So I decided to use that rather than for myself. I used that to get a pair of cold steel training buckler for the Night Strike Self Defense for the Blind group. So now, when I'm teaching our blind members how to do knife fighting and sword fighting, we can also incorporate a little bit of buckler and shield work. Right? Now, let me first preface this by saying that I'm by no means any kind of a professional or expert in the sword and buckler or S&B fighting style. Back when I did fencing and sword training, which was over almost 30 years ago, I was way better with the two-handed sword and or even if I have to, uh, the dual wielding stuff. Like I am better with dual wielding than I am with the sword and buckler or sword and shield. Mainly because when you are totally blind, like myself, sword and buckler, sword and shield is not a good combo because most of the time when you are actually sparring or fighting using sword and shield, unlike what you see in movies, people don't just automatically aim for your buckler. People don't just automatically aim for your shield. Most of the time, you have to move your shield or buckler in the path of their attack, which means you need to be able to see their body posture, their positioning, their sword arm, and all that stuff. Without being able to see any of that, it's very difficult to effectively um, employ your buckler or shield. Most of the time, it's just end up becoming more of a burden than anything else. So why do I even want to bother training our members in this? Well, because I think training is not all about practicality. It's not all about sports fighting. It's not all about survival. I think once in a while you just have to do something kind of geeky, kind of fun, so people can at least historically speaking understand the method, the methodology, the movement, the thought process, and what it feels like to fight like people used to, or to know what it feels like to have to think about a shield, right? So anyway, it's not for any kind of serious stuff. We are not going to gear up for the battlefield. We are not going to enter any kind of international competition. We are just going to have some fun, right? And it is in that spirit I am introducing the cold steel training buckler. These things are usually about $54 Canadian, so I'm thinking about $40 US. You can probably get them a lot cheaper when they're on sale. And these things are really, really durable. They are 12 inches across. Honestly, it kind of look like a hat, doesn't it? If I hold it up like that, kind of look a little bit like a hat. Um, there's a handle attached to the back, and the screws holding this on is very, very hardcore, very heavy duty stuff. Now, feels good in the hand, and definitely really, really hard. You guys can probably already see that there's a couple scratches on it. And this is one thing that when you look at the description of the cold steel training buckler, it said do not use it with metal training weapon. And that is why, because when you hit it with a metal blade, it will not break, but it will scratch, right? But I want to show you guys just how durable this thing is. Okay, like with this in hand, as long as you use it in the correct manner, there's no fear of this breaking. Of course, I don't know if it's going to break if you run it over with a car or anything, but let me grab our training cookery. It, when I did a video on this training cookery, I illustrated just how much force this thing packs. And this is a training model, and you can definitely break bone with this. Right? This thing generates a lot of force. And if you haven't seen how crazy this is, go back and watch that video when I talk about the cold steel cookery trainer. So with that, yeah, I'm hitting it like as hard as I can, right? It's not even like chipping it. It's there's a little bit of a scratch on the rim. Is that from the cookery or was that already there before? But yeah, you might be able to scratch it if you hit it hard enough. But yeah, it's really, really doable. And the best part was, as hard as I was hitting that, there was no impact on my hand. Like the way this thing is built, the dome, the boss, and the buckler really takes a lot of the shock away from your hand. So when you're holding this and someone really dings it hard, like with whatever they're holding, I haven't tried it with a sledgehammer, but I don't think you're going to feel all that much when someone hit it really hard, right? But with that said, I want to first go through the basic of how you hold a buckler. Because if this was just a product review, well, there's not much to say about this. This is, well, round, domed, weighs about 2 pounds, and there's not much to say. It's nearly indestructible. Okay? But I thought we might as well take this chance and look at some basics of buckler, using a buckler with your sword, right? And first, you need to know how to hold it. I'm going to come closer to the camera so you can actually see my hand. So, a lot of people hold the buckler wrong by grabbing it, just wrapping the finger and thumb around it like a hammer grip, okay? Like this. Right here, let me, yeah, maybe you can see my hand better this way. Sorry about the shake on the camera. Okay, don't hold it this way. Right? The reason why you don't want to hold your buckler that way is because you don't have any support or structure behind the shield, behind the buckler. Okay, when you wrap your whole hand around it like this, it's only stable if the force hit the boss, aka the middle of the shield, directly. Then you have support. But watch what happens if I hold it like this, wrapping my whole hand around the handle. Okay, if a little bit of pressure, I'm just going to use my thumb, okay? A little bit of pressure hit the outside of the rim. By the way, when I say outside, inside, inside means the side close to your torso. Outside means the side closer to your shoulder, okay? So let's say I hold this and then I poke it with my thumb, right? It turns. It turns. I you would have to hold on to this super hard to prevent it from turning, and that is not going to be good when you have a sword to think about as well. Okay, if just a little bit of pressure from my thumb going to make it turn, then you do not want to hold it this way. Okay, turning this way outward, it's not bad. Okay, if there's a sword coming turn, it will go past you, or maybe at the very least get your shoulder. at the most. But if the sword gets your inside edge, okay, and this turns, then the sword nails you right in the chest, right? Right? Like that. So there's two ways you can hold your buckler, probably more than two ways, but I was only taught two ways. Okay, let me come closer to the camera so you can see my hand position. Um, One way is to rest your thumb along the spine of the handle, on the back of the handle, like this. Okay, this will give you somewhat more control, because if someone try to hit the side, the edge, then your thumb will feel it. That will allow you to turn your wrist in time to hopefully prevent that. It's still not ideal. It's still not ideal, but it's one way to hold it is with the thumb laid against the back of the handle like this. Another way, my preference, my personal preferred way, is to have your thumb on the back of the shield. See how when the handle is wrapped, my fingers wrapped around the handle, and then my thumb goes right here on the back of the shield. This way, as soon as there's force hitting the inside edge, there's very little give, right? And honestly, when it's a sword, unless you're fighting someone using an axe, there's not going to be a massive amount of impact. So your thumb should be able to compensate for it. Now, some people say, well, what about the outside edge? Well, like I said, if it hits the outside edge and it turns, that's okay, because it's going to clear you most of the time. It should clear your body if it turns the shield to the outside. In fact, when you're working with a buckler, Chinese accent coming through, sorry. When you're working with a buckler, it's okay to swivel your buckler outside. This is called the open position, when the edge of the shield is toward your opponent and the boss, aka the center, is toward the outside. This is called the open position. And this is okay for defending cuts from this direction, or you want to turn attack toward that direction. The closed position is when the boss is toward your opponent. Okay, like this, straight on. Right? Again, with the thumb on the inside of the shield, there should be no letting the point in toward your body. Um, One thing that I was always told, when I was taught with the buckler, is you never want to do this kind of opening door motion with your buckler. Although, one thing I have noticed is that in competitions today, people are much more free with their shield and buckler moving all over the place. When I was taught more old school. I'm not saying old school by meaning it's hardcore. I'm just saying it's more classic. Because the way I was taught is your buckler has to almost always stay near your sword arm, your sword hand, because this is to back up your sword. This is as a not to move as an independent entity. Okay, even when you block, a lot of the time you are to block with your sword and then bind it with your shield or buckler, and then that will free up your sword to thrust. Right? When you block with a sword, you you just imagine there's an enemy sword there. You block with a sword, right? Bind it up, push the other person's sword with your buckler, and that will free your own sword up into attacking. So the buckler is there as a support. In fact, when we were taught, we were always told that the inside of your wrist, just imagine your two hands are always together at the wrist. Okay? This is basically how you should think of a buckler. So it's not like the sword is over here to the right and the buckler is over here to the left. Uh, no. But the reason why it's okay nowadays is in competition, you you got a lot of safety built in, right? So this is no longer like the old days where when you get into a sword fight, what's the first thing that's going to get cut off? Usually your hand, usually your arm. This is why the old school, the buckler, stay close to this, this, this. Okay, your wrist almost always together. Buckler behind the sword, buckler under the sword, buckler over the sword. Now, uh, I forgot to mention this, but when you hold your buckler, don't have a death grip on this. Okay? This should be nice and loose and only apply pressure and tight grip when you need to. Otherwise, your arm will fatigue really quick. Again, especially when you have to worry about using a sword. Now, I know most of the time it's not with this kind of big, heavy sword. That's not what you use a buckler with. But I don't have a rapier at hand, so we're just going to use this sword for now. One thing you have to always keep in mind is which hand is on top. Okay, this is not set in stone, but it's something that you definitely want to think about. Because if you have your sword on top like this, right, and your buckler hand on the bottom, then if someone suddenly cut at your leg, you are going to have a hard time getting your buckler down there, right? You're going to have a hard time because the buckler is only 12 inches. My arm is only this long. So if someone cut low, then I have to really drop down to get my buckler there. And if my sword is on top of the buckler, if my sword arm is on top of the buckler, I have to clear my buckler to get my sword down there, which is not a good combination. It's not a good situation. So my personal recommendation, and again, I'm by no means an expert at this. I'm just going off of years and years of weapons training and common sense. Is you keep your sword arm under the buckler. Why? Because this hand with the buckler can get to your head very easily. Very easily. This hand with the sword is long enough that all I have to do is drop this point towards the ground to parry an incoming blow at my foot. I don't have to jump down like that. Okay? So the shorter reach buckler protects the upper body, head, and the longer sword can go down, defend the lower quarter, right? And as you can see, if I really pay attention, then my sword and buckler don't really leave each other that much. Okay? Block high, block low. Block high, block low, right? They might, I mean, your arms might part a little bit, but it's not totally ridiculous. Now, there's some form uh, where your buckler will leave your sword arm. And one of the ones I remember from my training was have the buckler in front like this, your sword pull back behind the buckler. So the sword point is basically here behind the buckler. This will shield your sword point from the view of your opponent. This way it's harder for them to gauge which way you're going to thrust. Is it going to be this side? 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 Now, I'm not very good at this, so you can actually tell. A seasoned fighter can tell which way I'm going to go by the dip in my buckler. They can tell by me telegraphing because my buckler tend to move a little bit. But if you are really, really good, this is a really good way to hide your sword point, which way you are going to go, right? Like I said, this is not a proper sword for this, but you get the idea. One of the Before we go, I'm going to leave you with a little exercise. If you want to play around with this, is hold your buckler and sword together forward like this. So again, top hand with the buckler, lower hand, bottom hand with the sword. Now from this position, practice how to cut to the 8 directions. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Okay, so try to do this without moving your buckler as best as you can. So the buckler stays very stationary. Your sword should be very free to move around the buckler like it's circling a planet, like it's orbiting a planet. And then at the end, you should be able to go back to your arms crossed at the wrist like this. Some of you that are professional at your medieval martial art and uh, stuff like that, you can probably give us more tips in the comment section and tell me what part I did wrong. But anyway, that's our fun little basics of sword and buckler fighting. Thank you.